Hi, and welcome back to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is July 18th, and today we're going to hear part 2 of the story that we started yesterday entitled, How One Owl Inspired Change.
And so yesterday we learned about Flacco, or Flaco the owl, and his somewhat long life in the Central Park Zoo. And so he lived a kind of a quiet, anonymous life as a Eurasian owl, eagle owl in the Central Park Zoo. A vandal cuts the mesh out. He flies free. The zoo attempts to capture him and then decides, you know what? This is working out. Let's just let him go. About a year later.
Because they couldn't capture him.
Because they couldn't capture him. He's too tricky.
Yeah.
After about a year, sadly, Flaco hits a building and dies. Now, at the very end of yesterday, we kind of talked about maybe some possibilities of what happened here. And what the scientists that kind of examined his body discovered is that, like many owls, they eat mice found in cities. But cities often have rat and mice control problems, and so they use poison. But that poison goes up the food chain and eventually starts impacting larger animals like owls. And sadly, that weakens those bigger birds too. Because they're filled with poison, their bodies don't often work well, and they don't fly as well. Sadly, that's probably what happened to Flacco. Not having the best control of his body, he slammed into a building and fell to the earth and died.
Right. So you're poisoning the rats, but you're also poisoning their predators.
That's right.
Predator is Predator. 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 A predator is an animal that preys on other animals. It hunts on other animals to live.
So Flacco is an example of charismatic megafauna. This is a term used by animal research groups that want to kind of get people excited about taking care of Mother Nature and other creatures.
Now, first of all, watch out for that very fancy-sounding word, charismatic. Now, when you say charismatic, I think of preachers, people trying to get you to believe in a certain kind of Christianity. But charisma is just this irresistible quality of some people of drawing other people to them. We just love the way they look. We're drawn to them. We admire them. They have charisma. And the adjective form is charismatic.
That's right. And if you have a lot of young people in your life, you may hear them use the word riz. Riz just means charisma.
Oh,
and that's where you get it from. That's where
riz.
It comes from, is riz.
I'm glad it's not frizz.
Yeah. And megafauna just means big animals. And so today we're going to read our story, but here's what I want everyone to do. I want everyone to take a moment and think of what is considered charismatic megafauna. And I'm going to give everyone a hint. Think of all the big basic animals, especially ones that live like in the Arctic or maybe in Africa. And I'm going to go through a list with Karen later and to see if we can determine what the 20 most popular charismatic megafauna are that are used to get people to care about animals.
That's right. So animals that we may be harming through our careless actions. Okay, let's hear our article. Flaco the owl's death touched many animal lovers. In memory of the Eurasian eagle owl, New York State Senator Brad Hoylman-Sigal advocated for a law, the Bird Safe Buildings Act, to be renamed the Flaco Act.
The law, which stands for the Feathered Lives Also Count Act, aims to reduce bird collisions with buildings. It requires any new buildings or existing ones that underwent significant alterations across New York State to include bird-friendly designs. In particular, the rules call for windows to be more visible to birds.
In addition, the New York City Council has also taken action. At the urging of a city councilman, a package of 3 bills called Flaco's Law was introduced. At least one of those has already been passed. A ban on the use of rat poison by the city's health department to control the rodent population. The necropsy done on Flaco revealed he had a high level of rat poison in his system due to consuming rats. Now, New York uses other methods to reduce the number of these pests.
As many as 1 billion birds die from colliding with windows each year in the United States alone. Unlike the deaths of other nameless birds, Flaco's death leaves behind a high-profile legacy of government action.
So this is a feel-good story about lawmakers doing what they're supposed to.
That's right. So yesterday we talked about the term a tearjerker that makes you cry. And then there's the silver lining, which is the happy ending that can come out of something tragic or sad.
And now, since you've said that, I want to mention that when something awful happens in your life, what do?
Reflection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe you've had a loved one pass away, or maybe you lost your job. I mean, a lot of awful things can happen. But what usually happens, first you get really angry. Why did this happen to me? It's not fair. Then you just get sad and you have to grieve. And then after that, you'll probably reflect and you'll think, what good can come of this? And that's called an inflection point. It means a place where it bends, where it turns. There's a turnaround. So if you look at famous people's lives or anybody's life, you'll often find that something awful happened at some point that turned everything around because they were so upset they wanted to make something good come of it. They had an inflection point, I-N-F-L-E-C-T-I-O-N, I-N-F-L-E-C-T-I-O-N. That's an inflection point. So we had an inflection point here with the death of Flacco.
That's a great point. That's right. So people were excited to see this bird flying around and living in New York City. And here is a little bit of a success story. Zoos can be controversial. And here is a little bit of a success story coming out of COVID. And instead of just saying, well, the bird died, the end, people decided, is there some good that can come out of this? And I think that's a really wonderful way to approach the issue.
Let's go back to the beginning and look at it sentence by sentence. Flacco the owl's death touched many animal lovers. Now you notice how inconsistent I'm being because I originally started saying Flaco, but I found Chris's suggestion very convincing. I started saying Flacco, but then I went back to my original pronunciation, then back to Chris's. So just get used to it.
And then I did the same thing.
So this actually shows you this is a form of accommodation between any two speakers. When we are having a conversation, I will try to adapt to you and then you will adapt to me. That's just how language works. So Flacco the owl's death touched. It doesn't mean that it physically touched you, but it moved you.
I think yesterday we used the phrase captured the hearts of was the phrase we used. And so the turn of phrase today is to touch many animal lovers. But they basically mean the same thing.
But at the same time, I want to warn you to be careful with this word touch because a lot of people say, this touched me, but in the sense of it just made contact with me. So I want to touch this topic. No, we don't say that. You can say, I want to touch on this topic. Just be careful with touch because it's often used incorrectly in Taiwan English. Make sure you know what you're doing. So in this case, it means move them, made them feel very strong feelings of love, actually.
That's a very good point that preposition changes the meaning entirely.
Right. In memory of the Eurasian eagle owl, New York State Senator Brad Hoylman-Sigal advocated for a law, the Bird Safe Buildings Act, to be renamed the Flacco Act. So here comes the silver lining. So we're sad about this, but maybe we can prevent further deaths or at least reduce the number of deaths if we do something now.
When we advocate for something or somebody, we're pushing for this thing to become more prominent or become more well-known or more visible across society.
Right. And note the word to advocate for. That means to speak on behalf of somebody else. That's what a lawyer does. So we say that a lawyer is an advocate. If it's a noun, we pronounce A-T-E as ut. We don't say he's an advocate for this measure. He's an advocate. He advocates for this measure. If it's a verb, we pronounce it ate. If it's a noun, it's ut. Second paragraph.
The law, which stands for the Feathered Lives Also Count Act, aims to reduce bird collisions with buildings.
Now you can hear me kind of chuckling in the background because Chris said something really funny about exactly this sentence before we started recording.
So the Flacco Act is really memorable. You're like, oh yeah, here's this act, this bill, this proposed legislation to honor this bird and make it better. But they tried to make it an acronym, and man, did they try and not do a very good job of it.
Well, it was impressive. So the original name of the act was the Bird Safe Buildings Act, which is just very straightforward.
It's a little anonymous. It's a little
anonymous,
gray,
a little flat.
It's clear.
But it's fine. It's clear, right. But now they have changed the name of the act. They gave it another name.
It really is goofy.
And how did they pick the words that they used to name this act? They took the first letter of each of the words in the name of this act are from the name Flaco or Flacco, the name of the owl.
But the last word is count, and then like, we don't have an O. Like, okay. C-O is the C. I mean, they're really stretching
That's good enough. Yeah, good enough. C-O. It's the beginning of the word.
I want to know what everyone's take on. Which one is better, Bird Safe Buildings Act or the Flacco Act? I think maybe the Flacco Act reminds the people in your community that we're doing this for the bird that we all loved and were entranced by. Because if people reflect upon, you spent how much money? How much is this going to cost taxpayers to protect birds? People won't care. But now that we're thinking about the bird, okay, we're going to do this for Flacco. And now everyone's on board.
Exactly. So I think this name is very cute. I'm fine with it. But it's a little harder to remember. Flacco is a lot easier to remember. So feathered lives, we think immediately of birds. And they also count. We should also watch out for their well-being.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Collisions with is worth noting. So if two things run into each other, they have had a collision. This car collided with another car.
Our next sentence, it requires any new buildings or existing ones that underwent significant alterations across New York State to include bird-friendly designs.
Now, this sentence is very carefully written because one thing that they can't really do is demand that all buildings change their current design because the design was approved at the time the building was built. So they're saying if we have any new buildings, they have to follow these principles. And if old buildings are making changes, they also have to follow these rules.
That's right. And one of the changes that I think is very useful is that encourages buildings to have high contrast glass. So a lot of the very famous glass towers in Manhattan and in New York City in general, they use this very clear, transparent glass. And birds, that clear, that clean, transparent glass can be more problematic for birds. But if you have more contrast.
Birds. I was at a conference, and one of the presenters at the conference was just leaving the building, and he ran right into the glass. So the door's in the middle, it's an automatic door, and to the side, it's all glass. He was just walking at full speed. And he got quite badly injured. We humans do it too. So that's why you often see signs that say, be careful of the glass.
Or you'll see those little lines of dots. There's sometimes very subtle stickers on it. They just give you some kind of contrast. That's right.
It's very dangerous for humans too.
You are not incorrect because I recently came across some very new glass and it was very, very clear. I had to look at it for a half a second.
To find a reflection.
Oh, I could see it, but it was like, this wasn't like I still had to make hesitation. Now imagine you're flying at 30 kilometers an hour right into it. You can't stop in time.
Or even walking at normal speed. Yeah.
And that's, or a little kid running, right? Yeah. So that's why this high contrast glass has been included into this act, because that contrast, that ability to see the difference allows animals to have better and faster reactions. All right, let's go to our next sentence. In particular, the rules call for windows to be more visible to birds. And so that's kind of just what we were talking about.
And what did you call it? What kind of glass?
High contrast glass.
That means it's in contrast to the things around it so you can see that it is not just blank space. So next paragraph, in addition, the New York City Council has also taken action. So we were talking about the state level of government. That's for all of New York State. And Chris says he's from New York State. That means he's not from New York City. He's from somewhere else in the state outside of New York City. So now we're going to the city level, which is New York City. And at that level of government, we call the same kind of agency or organization a city council. So the New York City Council, which has city councilors. Okay? At the urging of a city councilman, councilor or councilman, it can be either one. At the urging of a city councilman, a package of 3 bills called Flaco's Law was introduced. So he's become Flaco again. So it's not just one law, it's going to be 3 different laws. Before the law is passed and approved, it's called a bill.
All right, and pay attention. Flacco here is not all in all caps yet, so we can see this thing is being changed and tossed around and considered many different ways.
Right now, it's just the name of the bird. At least one of those has already been passed. A ban on the use of rat poison by the city's health department to control the rodent population. Now you know that this is a serious thing because they routinely used poison to deal with rats. And if you know anything about New York City, what do you know about rats?
They're humongous and everywhere?
And they have a very, very huge rat problem in New York City, like especially in the subways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very big. They can be aggressive. They are not afraid of people. Like you're going to be walking down the road and some rat's going to be carrying pizza with you.
Dragging a whole pizza. I saw the same video.
So the city in reaction to this no longer uses rat poison, but everywhere else, buildings and private companies are allowed to use rat poison. So the problem is not totally solved, but it does really impact owls.
The necropsy done on Flacco revealed he had a high level of rat poison in his system due to consuming rats, and now we see the problem. Why is Flacco not healthy? He's been eating rats who have eaten rat poison. Now, New York uses other methods to reduce the number of these pests. They have not solved the problem yet, I can tell you that much.
They have not solved the problem. In fact, if they handle their garbage a little differently, they probably could make a big choice, but that's a whole union issue. It's very, very much an entrenched problem.
That's probably the main key to the problem.
All right, our final paragraph today. As many as 1 billion birds die from colliding with windows each year in the United States alone.
That pulls at my heartstrings. That is so sad.
I agree. And this is 1 billion with a B. Again, we have the word collide, which we talked about earlier. I want to say the second paragraph, the first line, collisions. And here we have a verb, collide and colliding. Let's go to our final sentence here. Unlike the deaths of other nameless birds, Flacco's death leaves behind a high-profile legacy of government action.
So celebrities sometimes can really contribute to the public good. So most birds have no name, so we don't think to care about them. Right. We haven't identified a particular one. But Flacco made us more aware of their existence.
I think you bringing that up, too, that this is sometimes... some people really rail against a celebrity getting behind a certain cause, and I agree there's some eye-rolling celebrity causes out there, but I do think that you're right that a celebrity, be it a person or a famous charismatic animal, can really draw attention to issues and inspire change, and I think that is worth thinking about it, and I think it's worth valuing when the opportunity arises.
Even if that celebrity happens to be a bird.
That's right.
Now just imagine Taylor Swift. If she's campaigning for something, people are going to listen.
People will pay attention because they care about Taylor Swift.
That's right. We have a few questions for you. Number 1. According to the passage, when did Flacco the owl become famous?
A, when he was born in North Carolina.
No. B, after he escaped and was frequently seen in Central Park. That's the correct answer. Let's move on to number 2.
According to the passage, which of the following statements is true?
A, the person who helped Flacco escape was arrested. No.
B, Flacco was caught after his escape but flew away again.
No, they never succeeded in catching him. Clever bird. C, some New York citizens saw Flacco resting on their rooftops. Well, maybe he was on rooftops, but you can't usually see the rooftop out of the window, so that's not a good answer.
And letter D, Flacco had learned how to fly and hunt well after escaping from the zoo.
Apparently that's true. D is the correct answer. Number 3, which of the following actions was not taken in response to Flacco's death?
A, banning the use of rat poison. No, they did do that, at least in the New York City government.
That's right. So that's a wrong answer. B, declaring a citywide day to honor Flacco.
They did not do that.
They did not do that. It might be a fun idea, but they didn't do that. So let's go on to number 4.
Which of the following best reflects the message of Flacco's story?
A, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Nah.
No. B, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which is, well, he did die.
It did kill him.
It's a terrible phrase to use here.
Yeah, but it's true. It's also a pop song. So, C, the early bird catches the worm. No, it's a very, very famous saying, and I would avoid saying it. You should know it, but don't use it because it's a cliche. That means People say it too often, so you should avoid saying it. That is not the right answer, which leaves D.
Out of tragedy comes change.
And remember that for your own life. Because if something awful happens, try to turn it for the good.
That's right, the silver lining. And so at the top of the show, I introduced the idea of charismatic megafauna, and Karen expanded upon that. She started talking about the word
charisma.
Charisma.
And that is a quality of being very, very attractive.
That's right.
Other people will find you very attractive.
And not even necessarily physically. This can just be your personality. So a charismatic megafauna, or charismatic megafauna as an uncountable.
Hang on. I'm going to have to introduce another word here. Fauna. F-A-U-N-A. I bet a lot of you didn't know that. We say flora, which refers to flowers or plants, and fauna, F-A-U-N-A, which refers to animals. Mega means very, very big. So this is actually animals that are very, very big that we're really attracted to.
So megafauna just means these interesting, big animals. And according to the National Library of Medicine, there are 20 animals that inspire a lot of change in the world and generate most of the income to protect nature. And I asked everybody, what are the animals you can think of? And I'm proposing this question to Karen, and she has not had any preview other than just saying, I'm going to ask you a quiz question. So Karen, what do we got? What are the 20 most charismatic megafauna that you can think of?
For me, it's blue whales, because I just heard it in the news about, it had to do with Coca-Cola, asking them to reduce the amount of plastic that they produce because it is ending up in the stomachs of blue whales.
So blue whales happens to be number 20.
Okay, there we go.
Any other ones?
I just got that one ready. I thought I only had to think of one.
Okay, well, think about it, guys. All the big animals, especially the ones that we like to teach little kids when they're learning the alphabet.
I'm thinking of elephants.
Elephants actually happens to be number 3. You want to take another crack?
Well, I would think of a lot of the big cats.
The big cats is correct. In fact, number 1 is the tiger, and number 2 is a lion. Interestingly, number 5 is the panther. Let me just run down the list for the rest of you so you can play at home. Number 4 was the giraffe. Number 6 was the panda. Cheetah's number 7. Polar bear number 8. Wolf, gorilla, chimps, those are kind of like monkeys, zebras, hippos, sharks, crocodiles, dolphins, rhinos, bears, and koalas. So how many did you get?
You might have the urge to go take the MRT to the Taipei Zoo at this point.
Check the list. That's right.
That's it. Okay, that's it for today. Please tune in next time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.